Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this show without the express written consent of the Financial Guys, LLC is strictly prohibited.
Investment advisory services offered through Independent Solutions Wealth Management and Blackridge Asset Management, LLC. Peak Broker Services, LLC is not an affiliate of Independent Solutions or Financial Guys, LLC.
Welcome to TFG Truth. I'm Mike Hayflick, along with Mike Sferrazza. Each and every week, we report facts, expose hypocrisy, and espouse common sense. And we're really happy to have on our show in a few moments, so don't go away, Andy Lalonde. Andy is a property owner, a landlord. God love him, because I don't know who on earth would want to own property now when you know that the tenants can basically say, hey, the government says I don't have to pay you.
I've known Andy a long time. I grew up with Andy, and I thought about something a few weeks ago when he was telling me some of his experiences and recently his last 18 months. And I'm like, this is great stuff to talk about, because some people just don't know, right? And
they
I
don't
think,
get it, right.
He'll have some good insight on what it's like to be a property owner right now. And that, not just, hey, I own this duplex and, he's got 5 different properties that he owns, and he's seen a lot over the last, we'll call it, what is it now? Almost 20 months now, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Since it started. So it'll be very an interesting perspective for a lot of people, because, again, I think sometimes, like we say, the landlord, you're like, oh, it just stinks they can't collect rent. But there's more to it than collecting rent, right?
It really stinks for them. I mean, it stinks for us to think that they can't collect rent. But try and be in their shoes. And I can't even imagine how Andy, continues to do what he's doing. Right. But really look forward to talking to him and getting his perspective on it. I really want to know, would he do anything differently?
Right.
Because given where things have gone, is it nearly impossible now to find success, on a profit basis, on a sanity basis?
Right. Well, that's the other thing, too. People forget, someone like him, he has another job. He doesn't just own 5 properties and that's his life, right? He has another job. Mm-hmm. He also has to pay taxes. He also has to pay utilities. And, it's not just landlords. Oh, they collect rent. It's easy peasy. You don't have to fix anything, So I think people forget that with it's a business, right? Owning properties is no different than owning an insurance business like me or a financial planning business like you.
Right. And he's got to take care of himself, his wife, and his family.
Right.
So all that pressure is on a guy like Andy Lalonde. We're looking forward to meeting him, and so don't go away, folks. First, though, Mike, you'll be so surprised by this. In a Quinnipiac University survey, Sleepy Creepy Joe's approval ratings are in a free fall.
What?
I know. That's what I said.
Wow.
I dropped my phone. I think I almost cracked the screen of my phone, because I thought, who doesn't love Sleepy Creepy Joe? His lovableness,
hugs and
his oh my God, the touchy feely thing. I mean, who doesn't like that? Especially from a grandpa type around young females, especially
smelling hair. It's all the usual stuff.
Walking up behind.
Yeah.
Shoulder.
All the usual stuff that you see.
I love the smell of your conditioner.
Yep.
Honestly, how could he not be in a free fall with approval rating? So part of this was 56% of independents disapprove of Joe,
which actually seems low.
Right.
I mean, meaning you would think more would disapprove. Right.
They say 28% gave him a thumbs up.
Right.
Or excuse me. Yeah, a thumbs up. 28%. Yeah. And 16% clearly don't know what they think. But 44% of people, who are you out there that think Joe's doing a good job?
And folks, by the way, not to forget this. This is the same guy that still is not taking questions at press conferences, right?
No.
I can't even believe. I mean, imagine if, and I actually know what would happen, if coaches in the NFL or the NHL or the NBA, whatever league, didn't take questions after, it's a finable offense.
Crucified.
You have to do it, right?
Imagine Trump going and doing a press conference and turning. He'd be crucified, literally crucified. Yep. And Joe does it every time, whether it's the set that they've created for him, whether it's actually walking across the lawn to the helicopter, at the...
Or just finding the right door to walk into in the White House. He struggles with that. If you've seen the video of that, he walks, they're telling him there, he keeps going straight.
Literally. I really do think, like they've done everything they can to protect him and to protect sort of this image of compassionate Joe. He is by far going to be the worst president ever in recorded history. I mean, honestly, everything he touches, everything he and Kamala touch is, again, I've always said, is it ignorance or is it intentional? At this point, it's obviously intentional. They want the country to collapse so they can say, look at what we are going to do for you. We're going to bring this back. Bad orange man Trump. Look what he did to us.
And again, I think let's look. Let's not be. Pick on one side or the other here. Let's just be real. Certain things, right? The border being a disaster. Other countries now, and not just, rumblings of it, coming out and being disappointed in our country, right?
Right.
From foreign policy to, our own country to, we'll talk to Andy later about eviction moratorium. I mean, all this stuff, it's like he's anti-business.
Right.
He's also anti-being tough, right? He's just weak, and he proves it every week. He doesn't talk that. Everything this guy can do is the wrong thing, or everything he does, I should say, is the wrong thing.
It's the wrong thing for Americans and those that are freedom-loving. It's the exact right thing for those that want to turn the world into a socialist,
but they actually,
communist,
and that's what's so frustrating.
World.
They don't, right? These people, and I know doctors, I know, professionals that say that they want this, everybody should be equal thing. Well, you obviously don't, because you chose a profession that makes $500,000 a year in some cases, right? So if you want everybody to be equal, then that's fine. You can be a doctor on your $50,000 salary, just like the rest of us, right? But they won't want to do that.
Nope.
And then, by the way, and your student loan debt, by the way, that is going to be the same as everybody else's too, because if look, doctors can make up a huge gap in student loans because they make so much money. You can't go to med school, pay $300,000 for med school, and then expect to pay it off in a reasonable time at $50,000 salary.
No.
But they want free education, so that'll fix that.
Free education.
Yeah.
And doctors, honestly, to their credit, anyone that goes into school knows that it's like you're probably 32, 33 before you're actually making money.
Yeah.
So not only have you put yourself back maybe 8 to 10 years behind many of your, counterparts from maybe undergrad, you're already behind the 8 ball because of time, but now you've got all this debt. But no, now we're going to actually pay you so much less than what you deserve. You're like saving lives, but not under Creepy Joe. And
when I say that too, I'm not anti-doctor. I'm just using that as an example of somebody. If you're, and I know plenty of people in the medical field that do not agree with capitalism and a capitalist society. And to me, you are one of the biggest benefactors of that, right? That's just one career choice, right? It could be anything. Anybody that actually makes money and pays taxes, if you're okay with the government, implementing socialism, you have to be out of your mind.
Yeah, I think they are. There's no question.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can be on board with that. Unless you think that you're just going to be shoulder to shoulder with the elite, with the sophisticated, with that higher level, that strata of society, and everybody else will be living beneath you. I mean, if you think you're going to rub shoulders with those people, you're thinking wrong, because it's a very, very small elite class, these globalists.
If you get to Dr. Fauci level, maybe. But besides that, I mean,
Well, if you're going to get paid off and you're going to do exactly what those folks tell you to do. So you mentioned the border crisis. Here's another thing: border arrests. So according to Emma Bolton of Fox News, arrests by Border Patrol have soared to the highest level since 1986. 1986, the year I graduated from high school. So it's been a long time that they've reached. Now, congratulations, I guess, right? Way to go, Joe. Your numbers are up in that respect. 1.7 million migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border during the 2021 fiscal year, which ended in September. So they're winning at something, Mike.
Yeah, the only problem is with that is when you talk to a guy like Sheriff Daniels, he'll tell you, yeah, we are arresting people, but two things. One, they're struggling to get them out of here once they arrest them, because you can't be cruel, right? That would be mean to send them back to their country. Or number two, you're not catching them because there's too many of them and there's not enough emphasis on the border.
No, there's no enforcement. Like they get them, they process them, and as far as Mark Daniels says, they have to just let them go.
Right.
I mean, they don't have a choice.
And then, they tell them they have to be back into court or to a Zoom meeting, within a certain amount of days. And look, it's like giving kids candy, and all of a sudden say, okay, now you got to bring that candy back to us later. You think they're going to bring the candy back?
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the keys to the Mercedes. Yeah. Go take it for 1 hour, but then you got to bring it back.
You got to bring it back.
Yeah, okay.
And if you don't bring it back, by the way, it's yours because we can't take it from you anyways. That's what's happening, right? Take the Mercedes, but you have to bring it back. But if you don't bring it back, We're okay. No problem.
Did you see how Jen Psaki, just wonderful at her job, she sort of laughed off that they're sending these illegal immigrants to New York, to California, and so forth, like middle of the night, as I think Peter Ducey said. Yeah. And she said, well, I don't know if I'd say middle of the night. Oh, no, just 2:30 in the a.m., 4 o'clock a.m., that's not middle of the night? Okay. No, John, that's early morning. Okay.
But here's the
joke.
Here's the best part about that. That's what got the coverage of what, the joke about what time of day it was. Forget that. How about the fact they're getting flown to other states? Like, forget the time. Make it 1 in the afternoon, make it 1 in the morning, whatever. Yep. They're still getting flown to areas like New York City and Texas, and there's no issue with that.
Not screened not only for their character and do they have any criminal background?
Yep.
COVID? Yep. Are they being tested for COVID? Are they getting vaccinated for COVID?
Nope.
No, they just go wherever the hell they want.
Yep.
If you have family members or sponsors, who are these people's sponsors? I mean, it's just a joke. So anyway, not a surprise maybe that Joe Biden's ratings are falling. Could be partially because of the border, but you could name countless other things that people are upset about.
At least he doesn't mean tweet, though. That's a good thing.
So before we transition to Andy Lalonde, do you think there's any hope? Is there any hope of like a turnaround? Do you think there's enough people out there now standing up for the vaccine mandates? People are losing their jobs now. Where do you think this is going?
Look, I think you're starting to get people that are saying, wait a minute. All right, we went along with this, and now you're really look. You look at companies like Delta and Southwest. Mm-hmm. They're pulling back some of those harsh mandates they had because why? Because they're losing people, and they don't have enough people to do the job. Right? I think some of these companies and a lot of people in society are saying, wait a minute, we did all this stuff. You told us this would fix it. The numbers coming out, I think they said we're almost at 70% vaccination in the country.
Right.
When is it enough? Joe Biden says 97, 98%. But at the end of the day, COVID is still running rampant in our country. Yep. And we have 70% more people vaccinated than last year at this time, and the numbers are higher.
Yeah.
So I think people are starting, I hope, but I'm starting to see it. I think people are starting to say, wait a minute, when does this end? Right. And I think enough people are starting to step up. I think more people need to. Right. But I think, there's more of the Mike Lomases and Glenn Wiggles out there and the two of us out there that are saying, wait a minute, this is not adding up anymore.
Corporate world, to me, has to stand up because a lot of them are between a rock and a hard place. They get business from the federal government.
Yep.
Things are, you basically get permissions from the federal government to do what you do. They have to decide, are we in favor of our workforce and what we stand for as a company, or are we in favor of aligning with the government? Because if you align with the government to that level, good luck moving on, because you're owned now by the government. If they can now tell you that you can't keep people who are unvaccinated, good luck. You're never going to be able to do it. So I think this is a much, much bigger thing than just community activism now against mandates. It's got to be at the corporate level. The biggest players in the economy and the biggest players in corporate America have to start standing up and saying, no, we're not doing this.
And again, you even if you put mandates in force, because that's what the government tells you, you still have to be able to create the products that you're giving the government or facilitating with, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're losing all these people, at some point corporate America's got to say, we just can't do it, right? And it's not only that, what's the next thing, right? Oh, well, you can only hire people that drive electric cars, right? Or you can only hire people who don't own guns, right?
You name it. I mean, you could go down to all the features that we all have, whether it's race, religion, size, height, weight. I mean, you name it.
Right.
If they start doing it with one thing, I mean, where did all this privacy, where did all of our freedoms and liberties, like the Bill of Rights, where is it going if that happens?
And before we get to Andy, I said this to my wife the other day too. Remember the days when people didn't ask people about their medical history, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's it's the first question people ask. Hey, are you vaccinated? I don't even. I mean, maybe it's because people like us just don't care whether you're vaccinated or not. But the last question I ask somebody when I see them for the first time in a while is, "Hey, did you get your vaccine? Hey, do you have COVID? Hey, have you had COVID?" If you're getting in a conversation deep with somebody, that comes up fine. Right. But it's like hello now. Hey, are you vaccinated?
Yeah. Do you have your insulin under control?
Yeah.
You look like you gained some weight. Have you?
Are you on medication?
Are you drinking too big of the Cokes now? You should cut down on your. Oh my God.
They don't even care anymore now. Well, it's like hello. Hey, Are you vaccinated?
And I think like a lot of supervisors and companies are just boldly asking their employees, their workforce,
That's right.
Are you vaccinated? Why? Because they have to know.
Right.
If it's their job on the line and they have 40 people in their division, they need to know how many of you are bailing out, how many of you are not going to be able to continue to work for me. Because you all make my living for me. You all make me look good. I'm going to lose my job if I can't produce. Well, they're all boldly now going to employees and saying, hey, I need to speak to you. Are you vaccinated? It's getting absolutely absurd.
Do you have your COVID card? Can I see your COVID card?
Seriously. I mean, we're going to have the vaxxed. Vaxxed like our friend Kathy Hochul soon. It's outrageous. So, folks, don't go away. When we get back, we're going to be talking to Andy Lalonde. He's a property owner, a landlord. Boldly and courageously, he still remains a landlord. We're going to find out how difficult it might be right now to actually own property and expect rent from people. Imagine that, expecting rent in the units that you own to pay your mortgages and your taxes and your bills.
And think about it for you. Imagine you helping clients, but then saying, don't pay me. That's okay, right? For me, selling insurance, right? Like, here, I just saved you $500. Don't worry about it. I don't need to get paid. I'll tell the company directly, don't pay me, right?
No,
it's insane.
Then we become a charity and nobody's making a living. Right. And it's crazy. We can't wait to get Andy's perspective. So you're on TFG Truth. Do not go away. Andy Lalonde up next. And now we're happy to be joined by Andy Lalonde. Andy is a property owner, landlord. We want to hear about his experience owning property and actually having tenants in this land of, I guess we'd call it rental forgiveness, right? Because if you own property, you're the one who took the risk, but the expectation is not that you get to make profits anymore.
And you still pay the taxes and the utilities too.
That's not forgiven. It's not property owner forgiveness. It's tenant forgiveness. So, Andy Lalonde, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So just give us a sense of what it's like. I mean, go back to, say, January of 2020 when it was all about impeaching Trump. I mean, those were good days, weren't they?
Amazing.
I never thought I'd say, remember the good old days of impeaching Trump. But literally, that's what we were all like listening to. I had just gotten back. In fact, it just reminds me, I had gone to New York City with my wife and my two daughters. I have a picture in my office in that Rockefeller Center with the big tree. We had just gone, I think, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or Christmas and New Year's. And it was all good. We were just living, doing our thing. And February, March come, and all hell breaks loose with COVID, right? And it just hasn't been the same. How has it been for you, though, as a property owner, someone who owns properties, multiple properties, units that you intend to then rent out, right? I'm just trying to lay this out here for everyone because I was never brave enough to do that. I always said, oh man, if I do this, my wife is going to she'll just be like so frustrated every time I get a phone call. Like, what is it? The toilet? Is it the toilet at 101 Smith Street again? I just knew that it would not work for me and my wife. But I do admire people who do it because it can be a great source of income. So what changed from, like, say, January of 2020 to now in your life as a property owner and a landlord?
So I started buying real estate in 2014. And the areas that I'm in, I was going for like a college market. And up until my leases all end in May because I time it with the end of the college school year. Mm-hmm. And that was a couple months into COVID.
Right.
And I had one of my properties, the tenant was staying, so I didn't have any issues with that. Another one was a college referral. And then my third property, I actually started running into issues because the guy that was living there, who had been there for about 3 years, was moving out. He was a college student, and then he started working, and he just stayed there. And so the issue I saw with that one house was all the college kids were gone. Mm-hmm. So my base market where I wanted to rent had all been sent home because they basically canceled the end of that school year.
Jeez.
So
Brutal.
I was in kind of a predicament, which now looking back on it, I've learned so much that of things I will never do again. And
That's what life does to us, right? Oh, jeez, that was a brutal experience. I'll never do that again.
I got nervous because I didn't know what was going to be happening going forward. So I put out a couple ads, and it was hit and miss, and people didn't want to come look at it, and people were nervous, and I had a couple people come, and the person that I have in there now was employed at a place that she wasn't going to lose her job because it is tied in with COVID. Mm-hmm. I won't go into detail,
but secure income. Secure income. Like, this is someone capable.
Yeah, I felt fairly confident, but I didn't do some of the checks that I should have done that I normally do because I was in such a kind of a panic mode of this place might not be rented,
right?
Yep. So that was basically she was really my first non-college rental that I had done, because like I said, there wasn't any college kids around to come show the house to and fill it.
So real quick, Andy, so I have a daughter up in the Oswego area, so right on Lake Ontario, SUNY Oswego, and she rents with 3 other girls. And at first you'd think, I don't want those irresponsible college students in a house, but now I'm thinking it's a pretty good deal for the landlord because it's like a reasonable good rent from 4 different families, I'll say, because let's face it, like 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds are likely not like completely responsible for paying the rent. Parents are. So you're kind of making deals with kids who are connected to parents who are probably pretty good for the rent, right? And so it changed for you though. So it went from a pretty secure situation to like, oh no, now it's like open to everybody out there.
And before you go on there, I mean, in terms of, I've known you a long time, so I know you've had these properties for a long time. Have you ever had issues with rent before COVID?
Not one single time.
Okay.
Wow.
Continue. Sorry.
Well, you must be decent at what you do then, because seriously, like, you must have chosen really good people, have good properties, people are attracted to them, they want to stay, they haven't given you issues, you must manage well, which is to your credit.
Well, and that's like part of like my whole business model is like, I was a college kid. I've lived and seen what college houses can become. When
I like that. I like how he just described all that. Like, let's not sugarcoat. Hands through drywall, doors coming off hinges, toilets being broken with football helmets. Like, come on, let's just.
I have been very lucky to have tied myself into good groups. Yeah. And it's just a referral basis, and you get good tenants in, and they're going to refer their friends to you. Right. And if you are a good landlord and you keep up, and I pride myself on having my properties in good shape, and if things need to get fixed, that I get them fixed. Right. And it just builds this whole... It builds years of having good tenants that pay rent on time, and they're not really destroying the places because they like you, and I have a good relationship with them. So awesome. But to answer your question and to say, most of the time you're dealing with the parents that are paying the rent for the kids.
That's a great business model, honestly. So what happened now once you had to transition a bit whenever all these kids are going home because they can't go into the classrooms because, God forbid, COVID's running rampant on college campuses, right? You basically said, well, I've got to get somebody in there. Somebody's got to pay me for these properties. I mean, even if the properties were all paid off, people start to depend, like people like you, and I'm not saying I know your finances, but you start to depend on the monthly income. You start sort of setting a lifestyle in place accordingly, right? And so what issues and what are the challenges now in this sort of new COVID environment where tenants get to say, hey, even though I am working, even though I have a great source of income, I don't have to pay this guy anymore?
So there's a couple things that are pretty interesting about what I've learned in the past year. When I signed the lease with this lady, she has children that were going to be living at the house, and then a family member who wasn't originally part of anything moved in. And according to all these New York State laws, there's nothing you can do about that. And they can move family members in, and they can basically move, without going into too much detail, they can move whoever they want in if they are family.
Oh my goodness.
And so this woman, like I said, she seemed great. She paid a security deposit. She paid, I want to say, a month or two in advance. And I was like, okay, this is great, you know? And then the wheels just fell off the bus. And she's not responding. It's just amazing that once you give people a little bit of room, they just take it and run.
Well,
she won't respond to any of my texts. I drove up there countless times. I had meeting dates set. I'm texting her weeks in advance. Hey, I'm coming on this day at this time, you know, and I get a text 5 minutes before I get there. Oh, yeah, we're not going to be there.
So
you know, it's just like...
So let's correct this, though, because we deal with a lot of people, right? I'm a financial advisor. Mike sells like thousands of policies a week for property and casualty. Scumbags are the people who do it, are doing that to you.
Use that same word.
Like I don't think I literally.
I didn't know if I could use those words.
Use them away, buddy. Use them away, yeah.
And I don't know this woman, so you know, whatever. I'm not trying to judge whoever it is, but that's a scumbag. Somebody who says, like, I took on a contract with this guy. He's got a great property. I'm going to live in it. First of all, she started to really, like, I think, screw with your relationship by saying, I'm going to bring people in that Andy didn't even know about. But then to start, just to not respond to texts and phone calls and make, you know, the commitments you made, that's just a scumbag to me.
But also, let's be honest, too. She brings the other individual in the house. You probably don't care about that as much right now if you're getting your rent every month.
Exactly.
Right? This is a non-issue if she just does the stuff that she needs to do, which is pay the rent, right? And I think that's the biggest...
And that's what I told her. I said to her, I was like, listen... you can stay here as long as you want. I have a couple simple rules that you pay rent on time, you respect my property, and you don't piss the neighbors off.
Right.
And if you do
Pretty
those
simple.
3 things, you can stay here for as long as you want. Because I'll have no issues with you. Nobody will have any issues with you. And what else am I looking for?
And you don't strike me as a guy that's going to, like, suddenly turn and just start, you know, beating somebody. I mean, you sound like a super level-headed guy. And you've been doing this for a while. So you know, like, hey, I know how to treat people. I know what I need to do to be a successful property owner. And you totally strike me as that kind of guy. So I mean...
But this isn't. This is, you said, give an inch, they take a mile, right? And this is what happens when you allow this stuff. And not to get political with you necessarily when I say this, Andy, but I'm just saying this in general. This is what happens when government allows people to not do things that they should be doing, right? Okay, we're going to rent forgive. We're going to give forgiveness on rent and paying your landlord, right? You can do that, but then they get used to that, and then 18 months goes by, and that landlord's shit out of luck. That person's living for free, right? And And that's what these people, they know it. They know it, and they attack it. They know what they can get away with, and they do it on purpose. To your point before, that's a scumbag, right?
They're professional scumbags, is what I call
Right.
it.
Right.
Yep.
They have made a profession out of, and they honestly, they do more work than it would be to just do what they should be doing.
Pay your damn rent.
They spend more time trying to figure things out and cut corners and this and that than just do what you're supposed to do, and it's a whole lot easier.
There are so many jobs out there. I say every day I drive up and down north-south on Transit Road. So from Western New York, you'd know, Andy, Transit Road just runs forever, right? All the way down into Orchard Park, all the way up to basically Lake Ontario. So I'm driving up and down Transit Road every day to come to and from work. There are signs everywhere. Wanted, help wanted, $15 an hour. So, all these
$2,500 signing bonus.
I mean, my God, I could go and make, if I really, really was in a pickle, I could go make 10 grand this year or this month.
Yep.
I could literally just work around the clock and make 10 grand. Yep. And I could pay off a debt. I could do anything. But to your point, and to yours, Mike, the liberal mindset has been, listen, don't stop people if they just have this much, heroin in their pockets. Let them go. Forgive the bail. If they're leaving a CVS with
$999,
how much money worth of merchandise, just let them go. My God, they must need it. Yeah. That's the mentality.
They're stealing bread for their family. It's okay.
Yeah. They're stealing iPhone chargers for their family, right? Because they probably all have iPhones.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, what really it's just mind-blowing is that the people that took on risks, the people who actually contribute by working, by making a living, by taking care of their spouses, their families, they're the ones that are just getting hammered. You just get hammered for being successful and for actually making a living and making good choices.
It's kind of frightening because it's almost like they're promoting people to not want to be successful. Mm-hmm. And when has that ever been a thing?
I don't know. Well, you see in the media, like gifted and talented programs in schools. They're saying, like New York City, no, we can't do that. That's so discriminatory. How is it discriminatory to actually do things for the bright kids and versus doing things for the kids who are having trouble reading and writing and doing math? You want to help them both, but you don't want to bring them all together. Let's middle everything. Let's get everyone to be mediocre.
But that's done purposely, though.
Oh yeah,
that's done purposely,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think too, if there is no the gifted and talented thing, they're getting rid of that in New York City, and it's if there's no top, if there's no super successful people or kids or whatever, then nobody's gonna. It's twofold. Nobody's gonna try to achieve anything more.
It's called socialism.
And the people that are achieving more are just gonna give up.
Yep.
It's called socialism. That's what it's called.
That's nobody's gonna lead. There will be no leaders. Right?
There's going to be no growth either.
Right.
That is how things grow. You see I see the guys that have 20 properties. I want to be them. Mm-hmm. I want to be that guy.
Yep.
Yep. Well, the beauty of it, Andy, though, is that because they've built this situation where people are useless, essentially, in our country, right? The youth is becoming useless. People like you are going to have more opportunities to buy 50 houses, right? And then your worth skyrockets and everybody else gets left behind.
Right.
It's not a bad thing.
I will say one thing, and I don't know if this will get covered later or whatever, but back to what I have learned this year is there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be in serious trouble when they try to, and I'm just going to say housing-wise, when they try to apply for housing. Because I have changed how I look at tenants, and I am going to say, well, what happened in 2020? What were you doing in 2020? And I got new criteria for people that I'm going to rent to.
Yeah.
So these people think they're getting away scot-free and getting all this free money and everything's going to be easy.
Right.
Well, I'm making it harder for those people to live in my properties now.
I love it.
Because I don't want to deal with what I've been dealing with for the past year and a half, because this is crazy, you know?
Well, let's get to like we talk about how people flee New York State, fleeing New York City. Who's leaving? The successful people, the people with a lot of wealth. And, I don't know what your situation is, but I'm saying you're a successful guy. You've got a full-time job. You're taking on properties. You've got tenants. You take great care of your properties. You're not going to just keep taking it on the chin. You're going to say, screw off, like enough. Yeah. I'm going to change my policies then if you're going to do this to me. So the smart people like you are just going to pivot, and you're going to say, I'm going to make this friggin' thing work.
Yeah, and let me jump on that just because we're talking policy now. Has New York State or have you had any, I guess we'll call it, legislature or anything sent your way as a property owner from the state, from the country about what's going to happen when these people, when this rent forgiveness is over or when they move out? Can you recoup it? Can you not? I mean, have you gotten any?
So we applied for, is this what you're asking, like the New York State renter assistant money?
Well, yeah, I guess at the end of the day, are you going to be able to recoup all the money you lost?
So I have just gotten paid by New York State, and we did it through the family member that moved in because he got furloughed, and basically he made no money last year. So what I've come to realize is that he was moving in all along, and I don't know why she didn't tell me that he was moving
Scumbag.
in. And it's just like, listen, if you can't afford it on your own and you need help from somebody, and this person was always planning on moving in, just bring them on in.
Right.
And
be honest. And be honest with you.
Exactly.
Just tell me. Let's work this thing out. Let's look at let's look at what New York State's doing for people like you and for him and for people like me who own the place. Like, let's sit down and actually have a conversation.
And again, I don't really care how the rent money comes in. As long as I get paid on the first of the month every month.
Right.
So be it, you know? So we ran the New York State renter's assistance through him because and that is extremely strict. It took about 3 months for me to get everything through. It was a complete disaster. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but once Kathy Hochul came into office, I got paid about 3 weeks later. So I don't know if it was just because I was at the end of my an exorbitant amount of time, or I know one of her things was, I'm going to open all this money up because we got to start getting people paid and etc. And a couple weeks later, I had a check in the mail to me. So
that's good, and I all I could think of is, you just sort of compared Kathy Hochul to like Drano. She came in, you poured Kathy Hochul down the drain, everything started actually working, right? But I'm also thinking, well, she wants to come in and say, look what I did, like that. And this is all politicians, but that's good for you. That's good for you.
But here's my biggest problem with this, right? So you have a tenant that comes in that's supposed to pay the rent, that can pay the rent because she has a full-time job and she was not furloughed or fired or whatever. She brings this individual in. He comes to live with her. Right. You don't know, now you do. That's irrelevant at this point. But my tax dollars and your tax dollars and his tax dollars and our office's tax dollars are all paying for rent that she should be paying for.
So let's just say you're welcome.
Yeah. I mean,
welcome.
It's insane. I mean, she should be paying that rent. She can afford it. Imagine if I went to my mortgage and said, times are tough.
I know.
These are smart people, Andy. To your point earlier, it's like, it would have just been easier just to keep working your tail off and just pay me the rent. But they are so clever. Some of these folks that know how the systems all work.
And lazy.
Then they're smart. They know, hey, we're going to be ahead at the end of the day. Andy might not be ahead, or it will take a long, long time, and fighting, maybe hiring attorneys. This is insane.
Multiple times I was standing in city court filing eviction paperwork.
Unreal.
Because it was about the eviction moratorium was about to lapse and come back and lapse, and it's like, you got to get this stuff in the first minute,
Yeah.
Well, and this is a reason I wanted to bring you on, Andy. Obviously, I've known you a long time, but for our listeners, and a clip of this will be played on the radio show too this weekend. But I want people to realize what this actually looks like, because we all hear, oh, they're just not getting their rent paid, right? It's like, oh, what a shame. But there's a lot to it, right? Your example with students, and then the top down, trickle down effect of shutting down schools and making everything remote, that impacts landlords, right? It's not just it just impacts students working from home. All of a sudden that impacts landlords, which impacts restaurants, because people can't go to eat around the school because there's nobody around the school anymore, right? So all these things and these decisions they make impact people. And again, to use your example, you have 3 houses with college students. You have 1 with rental issues, with somebody coming in and then not paying the rent, and then you got to go to the assistants. You don't get paid to do all this extra work to go get rental assistance, So I think it's really interesting for people to hear. It's not this just, oh, it sucks, they got to fight for rent. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Well, and you always hear the thing, oh, they're landlords, they're all rich, let's punish the landlords. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is literally crazy. It's like people need landlords. There needs to be the Donald Trumps owning tons and tons of thousands of buildings.
Don't say that name, Andy. Don't say that name.
Come on. For people to
now
live
we can't air this whole thing, darn it.
But and as a small time person with me, I own 5 properties, but taking a hit, it's huge.
Yeah.
And just like the time I have wasted and the stress that this has just added to everything, you can't get any of that time back.
And thank God you have a very good job. That's your full-time job, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine if you own 5 or 10 properties and you are living off the income from those properties, and all of a sudden, guess what? There's none.
Blows up a whole year.
I've talked to multiple people that have sold everything.
Yep.
Because they're not getting rent, the market's going crazy, and they're going to sell, they're going to cash out, and, do they pick up another job somewhere, working another 9 to 5,
right.
Because, but they're getting out of the business because they're just,
right.
And the issue is, too, the hot water tank still breaks. I had to put a new hot water tank into her house 9 months after her not paying me any rent.
And you want to say, screw you, you're without hot water. I'm not coming in.
Then you get sued.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Then they can sue you.
That's right. So just to wrap this up, I want to give you the last word. If you went back to 2014 and you just had this notion, maybe I'll buy some properties. Maybe I'll go in some college, communities and get kids to rent my places. Would you change your mind if you knew then what you know now?
I would not, because I can see the long-term effects of these things and what this is doing for my life and what it has done for my life in the past 6-7 years. And I enjoy doing it. It's a very good business for me to be in, and I know that this year's been screwy, but it's gonna right itself at some point.
Yeah.
And
I would not change what I have done.
I didn't even know this is the best example of this whole disaster. This house, it's amazing. So let me just go back and recap that. She signs a lease because you need somebody to sign a lease. She says she's going to pay. She doesn't. She brings her brother, cousin, whoever in, who qualifies for the assistance. They don't
homeless body,
yes. They don't pay the rent. 9 months. You're stuck without getting rent paid. Then you got to put in a hot water tank for them because that goes. So you're putting more money in. You're still paying your taxes. You're still paying the utilities, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then after how many months was it then at that point when you finally got paid? And did you get paid the full amount?
Well, Mike, it was, they signed in May, and didn't get any money. It was over 12 months.
Did you get all the money back?
12 months.
Unreal.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. I can live with that. But we all paid for that. It's the only problem with it.
Well,
So
you
let me
deserve
just add
it.
one more thing to this, because I don't know if people know this. They, when you put in for that money, they let you put in for 3 extra months. So prepaid forward 3 extra months. We got that money, but the 3 months that was paid for was eaten up in me waiting to get paid.
Right. Right.
So now I'm back to square one with these people. They will start owing me rent in, I think, next month. I got to look at it. Next month or in 2 months. But they haven't paid you for 12 months. They got all this money. What's going to change
No.
in 2 months?
Probably nothing, because it's just
Nothing.
It's insanity. It's like, okay, I just made it through the insanity circle, and I'm back to like the beginning again. The new fight begins, right? And honestly, like to your credit, God bless you, because you took on the risks. You actually had to develop the plan, the process, have the intellect, and the means to actually go buy these properties. And now you're the one getting screwed and having to fight.
Yeah.
But you know what? You're just lucky, Andy. You know, you're lucky.
Exactly.
Privileged. You're privileged.
Privileged, sophisticated guy. Yeah.
Can you kick them out, though, after May when the lease renews?
I believe that there is still a
Eviction moratorium?
I'm pretty sure. I haven't really paid attention to it.
I mean, that is
probably
bananas.
should have.
I know it
That
is.
is absolutely ridiculous. You can't even make it up. It's been over 2 years. I mean, and the thing is, for you, right? Like, there's not a tax moratorium. There's not a utility moratorium. Like,
Right.
At what point is it just bad business for you to have people in your houses? Like, what if they start destroying the house? Can you kick them out then? Like, do you have any wiggle room?
There is very slim margins of what you can evict. So the eviction moratorium, basically, it can't say anything about money. It can't say these people haven't been paying me. There is like 3 criterias that you can. But this is the funny thing. Let's just say there's 3 things you can evict people on. You can file all the paperwork, but the court's not open. It's like, you can evict them on these three bases.
Right.
But there's no judge working to see it.
Unreal.
So
Unreal. Well, and as we sit here, you're still a 5-property owner with tenants. Still,
Hey, you're not getting foreclosed on. That's a good
still
thing.
brave enough to keep doing it. And I give you credit, though, just to keep, just hanging in there, because you're right. It can be a really lucrative thing, a good thing to pass on to your kids, maybe. Having property is our assets. I mean, that's a great way to hedge too on just some of the more traditional investing that you can do. And I don't know. I just give you credit and wish you luck, man, moving forward.
And I think he said it. I think he said it perfectly too. We're as a society now, we're de-incentivizing going out there and doing these things, buying properties, opening businesses, opening a restaurant.
Yeah.
We're de-incentivizing that because he's taken the hit, and his last 18 months has been miserable.
Right.
Thank God he didn't have to sell the houses like he mentioned people do.
Exactly.
how can anybody who's trying to get into the housing market or the restaurant business, anything, say, this is a great time for me to start doing this right now? In 2021, if I was 7 years ago, if that was today, I wouldn't, absolutely not. No, I'm not doing that.
Right.
Yep.
But maybe, just maybe, people like you that are now experienced and have gone through this, you're kind of weathered, you've taken the shots to the gut and the face and the head and all that. Maybe this is an opportunity for people like you who know, like, hey, no, I'm going to navigate through this thing, man. I'm going to take advantage. That's what we've always done. When COVID first hit, and if you listen to Mike Lomas and Glenn Wiggle, the partners that we work with, we get out in front of this stuff. Like not that we wait for and look forward to collapses in the markets, COVID issues and all that, but as soon as that stuff happens, we get out front of it. We say, listen, we're here to help. We can help you. So guys like you, though, if you're good at what you're doing, you might say, hey, there's multiple owners of properties selling their stuff. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna navigate through this thing, man, because you're smarter than the scumbags. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And you'll work harder than the scumbag too. The scumbag doesn't like to work, and that's the problem. That this stuff's great while it lasts, and then they're like, I keep using that word, useless when it's all said and done because they don't know how to work.
No doubt.
And that's where we are.
We're gonna leave it right there. Andy Lalonde, thanks for joining us. Property owner, landlord, fighting the good fight, folks. Even in this time again of rental forgiveness, eviction moratoriums, he still owns properties, and that doesn't sound like he's going to stop. So to your credit, thanks again for joining us, giving our audience an idea of what it's like. I don't know if you've dissuaded or persuaded people to actually maybe become property owners. If I do, I'm going to start taking over Grand Island, just so you guys know, because that sovereign nation of Grand Island that you only bring employees from and only buy things from.
Stay off my island.
Stay off King Charles's island.
That's right.
Yeah, inside joke. We'll share why that's an inside joke someday.
And Andy, maybe once the new year starts, we'll bring you back on again to see if anything's changed with the eviction moratorium, any of that stuff, to see if we have any movement or any help to you as a landlord or anybody else.
Awesome. Yeah, we look forward to that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for listening. For Mike Sperazza and Mike Hayflick, tune in again next week to TFG Truth. We'll see you next week.